you have at the two extremes the coach that is super passionate, really cares about their students and their lives and whatever, and they just really want to help. And so they, if somebody asks about this or that or whatever, they truly want to help. And then you have the exact other extreme where somebody is manipulative and they're like, this is my chance, so
you need me, good.
Right.
Yeah.
And
they look the same functionally. They act the same functionally, but they are literally on opposite sides.
Right.
Yeah. Welcome back to the Second Plan A podcast. Sorry about that, everyone. We are back and ready to finish our conversation about You Are Not Your Uniform. So, we left off after the last episode, and if you haven't listened, go back. It's a little under 30 minutes. Check that out. Jump in with us here when you're done. We left off talking about the wave of social media posts going through the jiu-jitsu community right now, based on an incident that happened with the lead organization of Atos. The lead of the organization of Atos. At the time, they have since released a statement separating themselves from him. Regardless, it's interesting to watch. I think it's not going to be limited to just jiu-jitsu, first of all.
It's not even limited to Atos at this point.
No.
Checkmat is now in a similar boat.
Yeah, and you're going to see it. We saw this with the Me Too movement when it came about, just initially through, mostly I think it was like actors, actresses on stage performance type thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, especially as we enter it into the combat sports arena, I think it's just going to continue to expand out to all different types of martial arts. But I think a big thing to notice and understand here is this isn't like a problem in the gyms. It's not a problem on screen. It's just a humanity issue. It's just a problem. It's a humanity issue, and it's very individual. So if you're treating people you're teaching them to trust whether an organization is safe or not because they have posted on social media or because they posted a picture of them with their female athletes, you're not teaching people how to actually identify the problem. And that's the next problem of the problem, the meta problem. It's problems all the way down. Anyway, one of my big problems with all the posts, we need a new word. One of my big concerns about all the posts that you're seeing is, without telling people, you're telling people, you can tell a gym is safe because they made a post on social media, because they posted a picture with female fighters, because they control where their female fighters go or whatever it is. And that's just intellectually dishonest, and it creates the next problem, which is a lack of agency, a lack of understanding how to identify red flags in your training environment or whatever it is. If you just blanket statement, if I'm saying that I'm safe, I must be safe.
Well, and it also, and I understand that it's a disproportionate amount, but it also makes this all about one gender.
Yeah.
And the reality is, it can and does go both ways.
Right.
It's
female to female, male to female.
Right.
Whatever.
Right. Yeah. And so when you start working in these kind of binaries, you're going to create these false dichotomies that lead people to these hard and fast kind of litmus tests. And again, there's no area for the middle, which is where most people are going to be, and understanding that it can't be just, well, they made a post, they must be okay. It's like this building we're in right now, when it was built, it was a skating rink, and there's a sticker on the glass that, and I guess this was a thing at one point, it says safe space, and it's got some kids on it or something.
Yeah, something.
Like, safety doesn't happen with a sticker or with the social media. Like,
yeah.
The power of social media, like you mentioned with the Me Too movement, the power of it is it does in some cases give people the confidence to recognize, oh, I'm not alone. This happened to me. I can now feel better about expressing it.
There are some powerful, important things happening right now with posts, and that's great. But what you said, feel better, is what's happening.
Right.
And there's an important part of that too. I'm not saying you shouldn't feel better, but we also have to distinguish between performative and actions.
You have an active killer event. Some school gets shot up or whatever, and for a week or 2 weeks or about that, everybody is up in arms and everybody's posting photos, and maybe there's some color ribbon that we're doing this time around, or so and so strong or whatever, and then a week or two goes by and it's all gone,
Right.
and nothing changes, nothing improves, nothing gets better.
Yeah.
And that's the way I kind of feel about what's happening with this. If Atos goes away tomorrow,
Mhm.
and honestly, it probably is
It
on its way to
Easily
that.
could, yeah.
Which I'm indifferent to in terms of Atos itself. I don't know any of those people. I don't know anything about them really. So if they deserve to go away tomorrow, I have no issues with that one way or another. But the problem won't go away tomorrow.
No.
And I'm gonna say something now that is definitely gonna rankle some people, but there is a long standing misogynistic bent in the jiu-jitsu world going back to Helio,
Yeah.
and while this is not a jiu-jitsu problem,
The
what is unique about jiu-jitsu is, one, the proximity. Like we are necessarily going to be touching each other. There's going to be uncomfortable positions, or at least unconventional positions as they relate to other activities that you could be doing.
Yes.
And when you have somebody that is widely revered as the progenitor of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Gracie Jiu-Jitsu or whatever, go back and read his Playboy article interview from I don't remember. It's been a long time, and it's wild. You're going to be like, did he actually say these things?
Well, Brazilian culture is so different from what
Sure,
especially in the
for better or worse. I'm not
no, but I remember like my first jiu-jitsu instructor kind of explaining that to me in terms of the kind of the origin stories of Gracie's is where it was starring, but there was a part of that was, this is how you talked about misogyny and stuff.
Yeah.
Like, it's just different over there.
Yeah.
And we have a different standard here, obviously, but
right.
it's kind of wild because jiu-jitsu is in a weird position where it's not necessarily heavily tied to the culture or the religion, but it is, I mean, literally it's called predominantly Brazilian jiu-jitsu. So it is, but
Sure.
It's different than like Muay Thai, I feel like.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
I don't know. That's a different podcast topic.
End of the day, like I think a lot of what we have seen has been obligatory. People have jumped on the bandwagon because they felt like they had to. I believe that this will lead to a period of feel good.
Yeah.
And
then nothing until the next big.
And until like there's a real conversation, and it's interesting because I had an actual real conversation this week with somebody that's actually behind the scenes trying to make some things happen, and I think there is some potential there. Just like anything, there are going to be some pitfalls too, and no matter what precautions and checks and whatever we put in place, there is always going to be an opportunity for bad people to do bad things. And so if we're not giving coaches, instructors, training centers, and particularly students the agency to recognize and decide for themselves what's safe, who is safe, where is safe, those kinds of things, and then the true confidence, not the faux confidence, not the fake it till you make it kind of stuff, the true confidence to speak up, to walk away, to remove themselves from what either is a bad situation or at least on the surface it seems to be, and be willing to not just see that black belt or that certificate or that banner on the wall as some sort of shield that protects the organization, the coach, whatever, from any sort of backlash. And that's ultimately what's going to drive any sort of real difference between what's happening right now and then what potentially could happen.
Well, and hopefully things are happening. We don't know what's going on behind every academy's doors. I know the things we're doing internally and preparing to present to our coaching staff and the things we're going to establish. You're not going to see them on Instagram because they're not flashy and filled with a bunch of, I don't know, probably won't see them on Instagram. The algorithm's definitely not going to feed them to you if we put anything up, but like, it's not flashy. It's not fancy. It's the work. It's the grind that you don't really see. And so
it's the conversations that we have in our coach courses.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
the things that nobody's going to watch, you know, but that we have talked about in some form or fashion for a very long time.
Yeah.
You know, some things that probably should have been put to paper that weren't. They were spoken about, but not really put to paper in the way that I think they probably should be. Um, that's going to change. You know, I've been working on a new staff team kind of handbook for a while now that I think will be different than what most people are going to have and do, as it relates to these kinds of things and these kinds of issues. But end of the day, it doesn't matter how much of that stuff you do. There's there's always the potential for humans to do human shit, you know.
There's always the potential for humans to do human shit.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's what it is. It's humanity, and I do think as a gym, and because we are in very close contact, and especially jujitsu, where it's even closer contact, you know, that these things come up. They have a different tone because it's not if we're doing if we're learning how to paint or we're at a sip and paint and somebody is putting their hand on my leg. That's a very clear problem, very clearly not normal behavior.
Right.
But if we're doing jujitsu
Right.
and someone's arm brushes against me or these types of things, you have this initial like, wait, was that intentional? Was it not? How do I decide their intentions? And so it gets so internalized. And if there isn't a way to have a conversation and your students don't feel comfortable having those conversations, then these things build and build and build and get to where we are.
Yes. Yeah, and there need to be multiple avenues for those conversations.
Mhm.
You know, like as a student or a coach or whatever, you need to have multiple avenues for being able to have those conversations. It can't just be, well, there's one person that I'm going to talk to.
Yeah.
You know, or there's one email that I'm going to have access to, that kind of thing. Just because you know, there's layers to these things, and you want people to have to feel like they have multiple people that they can talk to, and that once that happens, there's going to be some action. Is a weird term here because there may not necessarily need to be
Yeah.
an
A thing
act,
yeah.
you know, but there should be a conversation to where all parties understand where everybody is and why they feel the way that they feel, and then let's determine if it makes sense, and if not, then why not, and make sure that they understand that. And then still, end of the day, it's going to be up to that person to decide, well, I know what I know, this is not the place for me, and I'm out, you know.
Right.
And I think people should have the wherewithal to be able to do that. It's really easy in our space though to lionize coaches, organizations, whatever. You know, one of the things we talk about in coach courses is not allowing coaches to get onto this pedestal, not be
yeah.
put on this pedestal, because and I will say, I think more often than not, that's a student driven action.
Yeah,
Now,
yeah.
coaches can play into it because once it starts happening, then intentionally or unintentionally, consciously or subconsciously, coaches can bolster that,
Mhm.
you know. But I think more often than not, that's not where it starts.
There's a meme going around, and it's funny, but also there are some concerning parts of it. And it's jujitsu or martial arts instructors, and like it's something like, well, my goal was to teach martial arts, and then the next screen it shows them in a janitor uniform, and they're like, the student is like, I cut myself over there, like whatever, and there's blood on the floor, and then the next one they say, my knee kind of hurts, can you show me exercises? And they're dressed as a doctor, and then they say, well, could I do this, you know, if I had to protect myself on the streets? And then they're dressed as a lawyer, and I'm like, I'm under a lot of fire for understanding a joke, but not accepting that it should be a joke. Like, you still need to know your role as a martial arts instructor. Yes, of course, we have to be able to clean up blood, but if you're not a lawyer, you have to be careful about how you're communicating legal advice. If you're not a doctor, how you're communicating exercises, that sort of stuff.
I mean, and again, like, not to harp on it, but this is part of our coach course. We have this
Yeah.
exact conversation. Like, students will come to you for marriage advice, you know, parenting advice,
Yes.
legal advice, medical advice. And as a coach, it is incumbent upon me to say, look, my skill sets lie in teaching you how to take this part of your skull and smash it into this part of their face. Like, that's it. That's all I'm qualified to do.
Yeah.
You know, we can do this and we can talk about this, but at the end of the day, this is all my opinions.
Right.
You know,
or like in my
everything
experience,
that I'm
what's
giving
happened to
you
me
is
that,
based on my filters, my life experience. And so, yes, I've had a knee reconstructed. That doesn't make me qualified to talk to you about your knee and what you should be doing. You know, I can say, well, these are the rehab exercises that I was given by
that you can
my
try.
ortho.
Yeah. But also, you should see a medical provider if you know.
So as a coach, if you don't take that stance and you start giving marriage advice, parenting advice, legal advice, medical advice, whatever, then you become much more than a coach to that student, and they start coming to you for the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And now, where there was already a status power kind of imbalance, it's getting more and more so.
Yeah.
You know, and your influence as a coach has expanded way beyond where it already was.
Yeah.
And that's dangerous.
Right. And I think that ties back into why, how, where a lot of these lines get blurred. Not really that, how the roles change and why sometimes doors open up that shouldn't be. And it's difficult. You have a community that you're trying to build. You want to have some type of social aspect. You want to understand these people's lives outside of the center so you can check in on them and that sort of thing. But that can also make a lot of what we do really difficult. And again, it's something that we talk about in courses on building communities and that sort of thing. But our students aren't taking these courses either. So you have to realize that there's a different expectation there.
Right. Well, and it's interesting because I think you have at the two extremes the coach that is super passionate, really cares about their students and their lives and whatever, and they just really want to help. And so they, if somebody asks about this or that or whatever, they truly want to help. And then you have the exact other extreme where somebody is manipulative and they're like, this is my chance.
Yeah.
So
you need me. Good.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And they look the same functionally. They act the same functionally, but they are literally on opposite sides.
Right.
Yeah.
So as an organization, a training center, an owner, a lead instructor, whatever, you have to let this side know, I understand why you feel the way that you feel, but this is not our role. And no matter how much you want to help and you think you're helping, you're not.
Yeah.
And you're going to have to pull them out of that and make them understand, no matter what your life experience is. And I say this in coach courses. If somebody comes to you for legal advice, you're not an attorney.
Yes. And if you
are an attorney, you're not here.
Yeah.
Right?
You're not their attorney.
In my floor, on my training, in my training center, you are not an attorney. If they want to set an appointment with you, pay the consultation fee, and come to your office for legal advice, fine.
Yep.
Yeah. But in here, you're a coach.
Yeah.
That's it. And if these lines aren't being set and these boundaries aren't being set, you're going to have this mushy kind of thing that can potentially lead to manifest itself very poor ways. Yeah. Even if the coach is not on this side and they don't have bad intentions and they have good intentions, and it starts out, I give a little bit of kind of advice here and a little bit of advice here, and then it starts like, because I've had this happen as a coach, you're like, ugh, because they keep coming back, they keep coming back, and then you find yourself in this weird position where it's like, I wanted to help and I offered this little bit of information, and now this person is relying on me, and if I cut them off, if I tell them, listen, I can't, now all of a sudden
you're a bad guy, you're villainized. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So you have to have these lines. You have to.
Or, you just post on social media that you're not manipulative and not a narcissist because you know what all these posts make me think of is during COVID how it was so popular to post your cleaning schedule.
You know what it makes me think of?
Huh.
In Mars Attacks,
Yes.
do not run. We are your friends.
friends.
Like, as they're shooting
Shooting 'em.
everybody. It's like, no, seriously. I made a post. I'm not
We're
a predator.
good. It's fine.
I'm like, what is happening
But
right now?
before, like, you may have thought I was a predator, but now there's a social media
Right.
post to prove that at
Right.
least as of this day, I'm good. Yeah.
So anyway,
If you haven't seen Mars Attacks, highly recommend it.
organizationally, these have to be conversations that are had,
Yeah.
and it can't just be a conversation. It needs to be on paper. It needs to be reiterated frequently. Coaches need to have a really good understanding of what your organization, your training center expectations are, and then you have to make sure that those things are being followed. Because again, we're dealing with humans.
Yeah. Yeah.
And humans are fallible. We are going to make mistakes. I have made mistakes in dealing with people in the past.
Yes.
Like 100%. I have made mistakes. I have engaged when I shouldn't have engaged. I have let people stick around longer than I should have because somebody else said whatever. You know, like I have allowed myself to be influenced.
Mhm.
And so I'm speaking from a perspective of experience,
Yeah.
having done it not ideally in the
Yeah.
past. And so I understand how easy it is to fall into that. So if anything good comes from this, it's that these conversations are happening.
Yep.
My concern is people will make a post and
That absolves them and they're
that's
done.
it. Yeah. We just,
Yeah.
we go about business as usual. And look, if you were doing everything right beforehand, awesome. That's great. That's fine. But the nature of our business is you're going to constantly be having new people come in, new students, new coaches, new staff, whatever. And so just because it's right now
Yeah.
doesn't mean that it will be if you don't have the systems in place.
We talked about that. Was it last episode? I don't know.
I don't remember what I did this morning.
Okay, so fervent listeners, tell us, did we talk about that recently, last episode?
Brandon.
Nick, too. So I think at one point in there, I was like, man, he just gave a really good 80-20, and then Mars Attacks happened, and we moved on. So I'd like to end on a lighter note. We've talked about on the mats having your career and who you are as an instructor and separating it out from who you are as a person, your identity.
Mhm.
What's your biggest takeaway between a lot of the recent events and things that have come and gone and your experience at SHOT Show and things that
Mhm.
stands out to you?
Yeah, in what we do, and we talk about this again in coach courses, there is going to be some level of I get out on the mats and I am performing, right?
Yes.
Like that.
Yeah. It's like an acting job.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not acting, but
No, I am
it's
who
a
I am.
performance.
But
It's
but
a
when
per-
I'm
yeah.
when I'm on the mats, I am who I am times 5 or times 10. You know, because in order to be good at this, I think you need people to listen, to pay attention to. They've worked their 8 to 5, 9 to 5 that day. Maybe they picked up kids from school. You know, maybe they've made dinner, whatever. They've had a long day. I get them for an hour. This is their hour of escape, and so they're relying on me for that escape. Well, I've already done those things as well during the day, and I have to put all that aside when I come in. So when we're talking about identities and you know, the job or the organization or the belt or whatever not being our identities, when you're a coach, when you're an instructor, who you are, your identity is who you are out there. But you got to turn it up a little bit. You got to turn the volume up some. And that's not based on rank or organization or anything like that, I don't think. That's just based on being a good coach, a good instructor. You know, I said in the first part of this podcast before we had our technical issues that the best person I've ever seen do it is Darren Levine. I have not seen anybody own a room like that. You know,
His personality was already up, right?
Yeah.
And then turning it up for the mats.
Yes. I mean, you immediately, it's like when I do the body language sessions, conversations, and I say, all right, think about when a certain person walks into a room and the energy in the room immediately changes.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Whether it's
Yeah.
this or whether it's this. And Darren was this. Even when he wasn't it wasn't teaching time yet. You know, he walks into the room and you immediately feel the energy level go up, increase. You might not even know why, but you feel it, you recognize it, you notice it. And then he would take that, and it's time to teach, and it would get turned. I said 5 or 10 earlier. It would get turned up 50. You know, his energy was incomparable. In my experience, you know, and I've seen him do this in rooms of 6 and in rooms of 200. You know, and we know it's easy to have that energy in a room of 200.
Yes.
Like it's so easy to feed off of that. Like I can get to there with that. In a room of 6, it's much harder to do.
Yes.
It's much more difficult to have that. You're still who you are.
Yep.
But you don't realize and
still
recognize.
know how to dial it up.
Yes, but you don't realize how much of that dialing is coming from the energy in the room. Darren brought the energy to the room, you know, so whether it was 6 or 60 or 200, he was going to turn it up. And I have not seen anybody else do it that way. I will say, I think if I was going to give a second place, it would be Pete Hardy.
Okay, so I was actually going to ask, because I never got to see Darren Levine teach, but I have experienced Pete Hardy, and I was going to ask you how they compared.
Yeah, if I was going to give a second place, it would be to Pete Hardy.
He's going to kick your ass for giving him second.
He walks into a room. We'll edit that part.
Yeah.
He walks into a room, and it's very, very similar.
Yeah.
It's and I don't know if Pete was like that before he met Darren. I think he probably was.
Pete's got that personality.
But then Darren probably gave him the permission, and I'm putting that in air quotes if you're listening.
Yeah.
To really be who he was in front of a group of people. So yeah, I think I know Pete Hardy has that same sort of ability to just command a room, and you want to listen and you want to pay attention. It's a little bit different with Pete, because if you're not listening, if you don't pay attention, you're going to get called out, and you're probably going to have to do some fucking burpees or something. Like so maybe it's a little different.
There's a carrot and stick here.
But it's the feeling is very, very similar. Pete is very, very similar in a room of 6 or a room, and I've seen Pete run multiple rooms of multiple hundreds at the same time, and this was, you know, Pete was probably 65 at the time, and I'm like, how like, what is going on? You know, you feel like, what the fuck am I doing? Like, why? You know, so yeah, I'm not saying that Darren is the only one. I'm saying that in my experience, I have not experienced it like that, but Pete's a really, really close second. I don't know that I have anything else to say on this topic. I think we've kind of run it to the floor, but I am, all of this is stuff that I think is important and I'm passionate about, and I don't want people to leave here thinking that I am begrudging all the people that are making these posts. Yeah. I just am concerned that it's eyewash. You know, it's the TSA. It's, you know, we're doing this thing because we feel like we need to do this thing, but then let's just get back to doing what we do.
And the concern being the message it tells people is, well, check their account for this post and they'll be okay.
Yeah.
When we all know that's not what it is. Right. If it was just as clear and cut as, well, I can just trust what they're telling me, then we wouldn't have this problem.
Yeah. Well, and you know, and the cynic in me is like, okay, but so were you for predation before the post, or like what are we doing? I'm really confused here.
Yeah. Did I really need to tell you that I was against this? If we have to tell you everything we're against, like
that's my thing. Like I don't know. I get it if you are part of an organization and you're like, I am not for this, and now we need to distance ourselves from this, and
that makes sense, right?
I get it. I understand that for sure.
Especially when, like, with what we're talking about, when the initial responses are, we're investigating, and you know, which they have to be. Like, I get it.
Sure. Well, I mean, at the end of the day, I don't know what happened.
Right. Exactly.
I have no idea. I can speculate, and based on context cues and precedent, I could probably come to a pretty good conclusion. But the truth is, I don't have a fucking clue.
Nope. Nowhere
know?
near this. Which
There,
is funny
there
'cause-
are two people that
Mhm.
really know, and there's probably a handful peripherally that have a really, really good idea, but I don't actually know.
We just had this in our community with Sycamore Brewing. I feel like we name dropped last time, so I'm going for it this
Yeah, I
time.
don't know, probably.
Where there was initially an accusation of predatory behavior, and it wasn't long before the police report came out, and it was very clear, cut and dry type
Yeah.
stuff, you know, and
Yeah.
and things changed really quickly
Right.
at that point.
Well, and in that case, and then you start, a lot of the conversation around that was, well, how much did the wife know? And
Yeah.
I don't,
All the
I don't
speculation
know.
and,
Like,
and the things that keep the media mill turning and the rumor
Right.
mill going.
Right.
And, yeah.
and it was similar to what's happening here. All of a sudden, everybody's posting. You own a bar somewhere, and you're posting a video of you pouring out Sycamore beer, and I'm
Yeah.
like,
We don't, because that shows you that
okay,
you don't
like,
support,
right.
but you've already bought that beer from
Yeah.
them.
like I don't know. It's just,
that was my part. Like,
it's
you
just
already
weird.
bought
I,
that from
I,
them?
I have a problem with theatrics on social media, performative kind of
Social media
shit,
is theatrics
like,
for a
I
lot
just-
of it too. Yeah.
well, that's why I'm not good
I
at it.
know.
Like, I
Um,
don't- okay, can we be done with this?
we can. I just wanted to say you were talking about your identity turned up on the mats. It's not that you are faking it. Like, this is who you are. It just shifts as your dynamic shifts within what
Yeah.
you're doing. It's like the difference between regular makeup and stage makeup. Like, if you put on stage makeup, you would look like a clown up close, but you need it big and bold to reach in the theater, whatever it is. And it's a similar concept.
I will take your word for it.
I am going on what I think I know. So
Well, that's what we do as humans.
this feels like a good place to stop. All right, everyone. That's our look at You Are Not Your Uniform. I hope that's the name of the podcast. Remember when we started this, I had a totally different outline and
as
plan.
soon as you started to say, that's our look at, I was thinking, I don't even really know what we just talked about.
I had a byline about identity and tribalism. Anyway, we definitely talked about something. We talked about it a lot. We did it well, I hope. Leave comments. Let us know if we did do it well or if we didn't. Subscribe on YouTube. Subscribe with the bell icon. What are the appropriate gestures to make them feel comfortable? I think I just did like the YMCA or the hand jive or something. If you hated the
I
podcast,
think this is...
obviously, I don't know what to do with my hands now. All right. Thank you, everyone, for watching. If you're watching, I'm so sorry. If you're listening, keep listening. Hope you have an amazing rest of your day.
Thanks, everybody.
There you go.